I'm talking about the real king, Canelo Alvarez. Saul Canelo Alvarez returned to Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico.
Who is still the face of boxing.
Fam, you know, if there was any question about whether or not Canelo is the face of boxing or not, it was deaded as soon as that entrance happened. That was some entrance.
I think they did that on purpose too.
That was some entrance. First of all, he's at the Akron Stadium, which is home of Chivas, not Chivas USA, the real Chivas. I don't even remember what happened to Chivas USA. Somebody could explain to me that. But I'm talking about Guadalajara's football club, the main club in Guadalajara. That's their stadium. Canelo returned to Mexico Lindo after 22 consecutive fights in the United States. He returns back for the full royal treatment. Bro, the production value on that, I'm not talking about the broadcast. I'm going to get to that in a moment. But the production value of that entrance, what other fighter in the sport is getting entrances like that? Maybe AJ, maybe Fury at Wembley, but that was something to me. Like, we're talking about the GOAT status almost of ring entrances. The digital display, the 150 mariachis, the dancers, like the King's flag bearers with those digital flags. I'm sorry, I even watched it again this morning. People are going to say, Maestro, you're a fanboy of Canelo. Look, Canelo's great. The ring entrance was great. Before I keep going, Kenny, you go for it.
I agree with you. It was great. He did his thing. It was very long too. Lots of fire, lots of like the bright lights. The crowd was going crazy, and David Diamante gave him the entrance speech of a fucking lifetime. That was insane. That was lovely. I was like, wow. How many more nicknames does Canelo have, bro?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I also watched, and I agree with Andrew. I also watched the card, the Buatsi card, with that Abercrombie and Fitch dude. You know, that like super tall guy. He reminds me of the announcer from the Running Man movie from way back in the day. He's on like some dystopian shit. Big Mo, I think, is his name. His catchphrase is like so bad. I'm sorry, it is. Versus Diamante. Diamante is coming into his own. I remember when Diamante started, I'm like, I don't really know if this dude is the guy. You know, he's the Brooklyn Nets announcer. He had the long dreadlocks, and I don't know, but he's come into his own. The thing that he says now, the fight starts now. I mean, it gets me pumped now. I'm not quite there of it. It's at the level of let's get ready to rumble, but I'll be honest, of all of the new ones, it's at the top as far as I'm concerned. You know,
I'll tell you this much. It's definitely better than Bruce Buffer in UFC. And I don't know how people like the screaming he be doing into that mic. That shit, whatever, man.
It's time. Listen, no. He's coming to his own from the four corners of the world to the four corners of this ring right here in Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. The fight starts. I'm getting into my bag, but listen, obviously I like that dude, and yeah, SWJ know what time it is, okay? That WJ know what time it. Big Mo is not the dude. What happened to Turtleneck? That's what I got to ask all my UK people. What happened to Turtleneck? Do you know what happened to Turtleneck, Kenny? When I say turtleneck, I'm talking about that bald black dude with the glasses and the turtleneck. What happened to him? Because he was better than this Big Mo dude on Sky. Anyways, we'll talk about Buatsi later if we could get to it. I'm going off on a tangent. I'm rambling. It is what it is. But let's talk about the Canelo fight. All right? Because after the introduction, you know, Canelo did what Canelo does. It was a little bit slow. It was a little bit methodical. But I thought he was beating the brakes off of John Ryder. He busted up his nose, broke it. I think it was in the second round. And it got to the point, though, where I was wondering, Kenny, has he fully recovered from this hand injury? And were there any also issues with the right hand? Because it didn't seem like he was throwing with full power. People are saying, oh, well, maybe Canelo's aging. Maybe Canelo only has a few fights left in him. Maybe Canelo isn't where Canelo was before. We're talking about the Canelo that fought Billy Joe Saunders, the Canelo that fought Callum Smith, the Canelo that unified all of the belts against Caleb Plant. Is that Canelo still there? Is the Canelo we saw last night back on top? I think that's an open question. I mean, he's definitely on top of 168. Is he a guy that's going to go up to 175 and beat Bivol, though, and reclaim pound-for-pound king status? I think that's a different question. John Ryder was a little bit limited last night, I thought, especially after the nose injury. Every now and again, he did have some success with that right hook and that left uppercut that he would throw. But overall, I really didn't see a guy that was troubling Canelo that much. What about you, Kenny? Go for it.
Sure. It's tough, man. It does look like either the injury is bothering Canelo or maybe Canelo is aging. Just because we've seen some of the same old Canelo, but it just didn't look as fast or as powerful. I know John Ryder is a tough character. You know, he's a dog. So he's got a chin on him at 168, right? Although he got knocked down, you know, he continues to fight. He doesn't really back down, and he continued getting himself hype and continues to fight. So you got to give John Ryder props, but at the same time, I don't know, man. Canelo, I thought was getting tagged too much by a dude like John Ryder. Like John Ryder's skills are limited, like you said. I thought Canelo should have been able to dispose of him and potentially knock him out, and he didn't. And besides, like, you can't discredit a guy for not getting a knockout. Things happen, whatever. Besides that, I feel like he didn't show any adjustments. Like, he was just getting tagged by the same uppercut and the same hook time after time after time. I think his eye was getting a little marked up towards the end of the fight or whatever. And you just don't expect that to happen. I mean, yes, it is a fight. You get hit in the fight. People are going to get, regardless, people are going to get hit in the fight. But you just don't expect Canelo to get hit as much as he did by a dude like John Ryder. I felt like the defense wasn't as twitchy. The head movement wasn't as much as it regularly was. And I don't think he's that old to be looking so aged from like one fight to the next or a couple fights back to this fight, you know. Maybe something went bad in training camp. Maybe he didn't have enough time to train to get his gas tank up to par to be able to move as much, or maybe he thought John Ryder posed no threat and he could just block it with the gloves. I don't know. I just feel like maybe Canelo is aging. And one thing I got to say too, Canelo is great, but yesterday showed me that Mayweather is levels above so many fighters. And I say that because Mayweather had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 game plans. Mayweather would adjust 3, 4, 5 times during fights. Canelo showed zero adjustments. Zero.
Well, what I'd say to that, Kenny, is I don't really think he really needed to adjust. I don't think there was anything John Ryder that was doing that was really troubling him or putting him at risk of taking an L. If there were any adjustments that could have been made, it would be adjustments that would have allowed him to score a brutal KO. I believe it was the 6th round when he really knocked down John Ryder hard. I actually thought the fight was going to be over then. I thought that if John Ryder beat the count, that Canelo would move in for the kill and get him up out of there. But look, Father Time is undefeated. Father Time defeats us all. And is Canelo aging? Of course he's aging. The question, though, for me is, look, is the aging stopping him from being what he once was not that very long ago, which was a guy considered to be the pound for pound, quote unquote, best fighter in the sport, a guy who could go up to 200 pounds and beat a guy like Junior Makabu, a guy who could go up to 175 and beat a guy that he was favored to beat in Dimitri Bivol. John Ryder was no threat to Canelo in that ring yesterday. Definitely not after the nose was beat up and busted and broken and gushing blood for 10 rounds or so. But you know, I'm not right there yet with, you know, Canelo's significantly lost like a step or 2 steps or 3 steps. I see a Canelo who, by Canelo standards, has had a little bit of inactivity. A Canelo who was coming off a significant surgery, and a Canelo who was kind of, you know, not really willing to rev the engine all the way to the max just yet because he didn't quite know what he was working with in terms of his hand. You know, he even said that to Chris Mannix after the fight, actually. And I do question whether or not he was hitting with full power with that right hand. I know there are questions about the left hand going into the fight, but even on the right hand, you know, you saw him looking at it a couple times, and it didn't really seem like he was throwing it with the same power and technique that he usually does. But maybe I'm overthinking that one.